Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beacon of Light podcast Tonight we have Miss Janet Huxley, and we are so excited to have her. But before we get started, let's bring this to you.
I'm April Tribe Juke. Welcome to the Beacon of Light podcast. I believe we are all made with light, and light is hope. This podcast brings authors who write stories of hope to all of you. Your journey to be inspired and amplified by these stories starts now.
And we're back. And it always cuts off on now, but that's what it says. So welcome to the show, Miss
I love
Janet.
that. That's a great intro.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have 2 books that you've written, and you can see it scrolling down here on the bottom: Milk and Honey Land, as well as Rainbow Land. And with it being Christmas time, we thought it would be an awesome time to pick out of the book of both of them something that has a feeling of Christmas for you, Miss Janet, and share that with our audience tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, April. It's such an honor to be with you. You do a great job, and I'm excited about your mission, which is commendable. And I'm just loving being a part of it. So, you and I live very similar lifestyles. So we're just running around and trying to accomplish so very much in our day. And all of that, I feel, is kingdom work. We're motivated by that and the love that we have for our God. So it's been a little nutty, and I am just going to pray through a very authentic response because I did not actually give it a lot of thought. But as you just introduced me, I was thinking that Christmas is all about the lights, right? I mean, in the darkest part of the night, we have the brilliancy of lights and lights on trees to attest to the hope that we have. And along with lights, I think twinkling and I think gemstones. And I know that may be a reach, but I believe that heaven looks like that. It's full of light and gemstones and things that are wildly brilliant beyond our imagination. Of course, the streets are paved in gold and what have you. But I guess if I were to choose a story from Milk and Honeyland, it would be the time that I found my diamond. And this is just really a miracle story I love to tell. So basically, I had this beautiful diamond, and like April had been through a terrible divorce and went into a jeweler and hawked the diamond, thinking I needed to feed my children. And it's really a nice one, and the jeweler had it for sale for a while on consignment, obviously. And finally, he called and said, I don't think you should sell your diamond. I think you should keep it. And I'm thinking, for heaven's sake, what am I going to do with it? And he said, have it made into a pendant. So I had it made into a pendant, and honestly, it was with a little reservation because at the time I couldn't afford a cup of coffee without feeling guilty for it. I needed to feed the kids, and what was I going to do with a real diamond necklace? But I did have it made into a pendant, and I had it insured. And then my company moved me here to Kansas City from San Diego, and I forgot to insure it. So you probably know where this story is going. I ended up at a soccer field because I never took it off. And after my son's soccer game was over, I reached up to fiddle with it, as I generally did, and it was gone. And of course, I freaked out. I thought, what happened to my necklace? And I had gone through a really rough patch. So I was feeling pretty sorry for myself, thinking, well, for heaven's sake, is there anything that I'm not going to lose in this life? Car, job, finances, all of it, marriage. And then I realized I needed to get over myself. So I'm at the park. I've gotten a metal detector. I'm out with the kids and my mom, and we spend hours on these fields that span acres and acres of soccer fields here in Olathe, Kansas. And the sun is setting, and a pink twilight has been cast over the land. And I'm realizing this is an exercise in futility. So I started praying, and I just turned to God. I said, I have to believe that if I was meant to find this, I'd find it. And if you don't want me to find it, I'm going to have to be okay with it. So at that very moment, I released it, turned to the kids and my mom and said, let's head back to the car. My son kicked a pop can and it came down in the grass next to my pendant. He found it. He said, here it is. I found it. And this was like finding a penny in the sea. I'm telling you, it was absolutely impossible. And the timing was impeccable that I found this. And the interesting thing about it was I later reflected that because I did not find the necklace or the chain that it had been attached to, I felt like my chains were gone because I finally understood in faith that stepping out in faith is just that, learning to put all of those things behind us and just focus on the source. And when I did that, I found it. And the great story is I put it in a safe deposit box for 20 years. And then my daughter used it in her wedding ring when she was married in 2012. Actually, it wasn't even 20 years, but this was about the year 2000. I lost it. So 12 years later, she used it for her wedding ring. So it's just a great reminder of, I just think, the brilliancy of our God in the darkness. So
That's
that's my
beautiful.
story from Milk and Honeyland. I think there are plenty of allegory stories.
That's right. There are so many things that can connect with that. And I love the that piece where we start on our own, working at it, finding it, right? We have that accountability, responsibility to look for things for ourselves, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just so interesting that each time we
Right.
add God back, suddenly things are clear, answers come, pendants come back, and it's it just reinforces your heart, your concept, the faith that someone, God, is there listening, hearing. In the grand scheme of things, it is something small, but something big because it helps to build and increase faith. And what a wonderful story for this time of year. So, with that, thinking about your second book of Rainbow Land, what is one of the stories there in that part of the book that also feels a sense of hope and brings maybe the kids and parents as they read together something that would feel like that?
So the whole idea behind that book is just to give kids hope. I feel as though so many stories these days for kids are lacking that redemptive value in that they're fun and there's nothing wrong with that, but I wanted to make a point, and that is why I wrote Rainbow Land, is to make that point exactly. So all of the stories in that book are aimed at that, and I guess I would start in the beginning because I used my own father as an example in that book, where there is an illustration of a father and a daughter standing on a cliff above the sea, and the girl is talking to her dad and asking questions about God and where is God? Is he in everything that we see? Is he in the colors? Is he in the birds that fly and all that we experience here on earth? And the little girl's father is quick to point out, no, he's not here, he's in heaven, which is actually based upon a real story. My own dad, I think, was just very pragmatic. And I don't know that he meant anything by it, but I clearly recall when I was a child asking him about birds in the sky, because every time that I saw a bird fly overhead, for some reason, I was stirred to think of God. And so I began to think there was an association, not necessarily that God was the bird by any means, but that he was in the bird, he was in the rainbow, the sea, the oceans, all that we saw around us, the beautiful colors, the flowers, etc. I could go on, the beautiful waterfalls. I have to say, my illustrator did a fantastic job illustrating so much of nature, to bring glory to God, because he truly is in everything, and everything we see around us is demonstrative of him. And I'm a big proponent of color. In fact, I'm a little bit color and rainbow obsessed. So in response to my dad's sort of thinking. I guess I ruminated on that for many years. And so it takes the reader through the little girl's perspective. She's always asking, God, are you there? And whether it's her dad or her friends or even naysayers, they're constantly saying, no, God isn't, he's not here. He's in heaven. My idea was to bring heaven down to earth for children so that they could recognize that God truly is not a nebulous, faraway figure that's out of reach or relegated to heaven, but that not only does he exist in heaven, he exists here on earth. And everything that we see that's good, every good and precious gift is from the Heavenly Father who loves us and is always sending us messages of love. So I loved what my illustrator was able to do with this. She had all sorts of beautiful pictures of nature. And then in my animals, just on the farm I live on. So, so it's all testimony and in rich color. That was a lot of fun to do, especially now that
Amazing.
I have grandchildren. They like it.
Yes, that is that part where we can bring in the grandchildren and see some of these answers and responses. I think it's really key that I was very aware of this probably 10 years ago, is that I have to spell it out. Entertainment is top priority. I'm bored. I'm bored. I'm bored. I'm bored. What is it? What am I going to do? What am I going to
Mhm.
do? That top
Right?
priority is entertainment versus how could I help somebody else? What could I do for someone versus that service oriented? What is that
Mhm.
commandment? That big great one that the Lord talked about. Love thy neighbor as thyself. I'm just saying. Pretty sure he didn't say entertain thy neighbor as
Yes.
thyself. No, no. Entertainment can be a part of service. But I think it's really, really interesting because it's not fun. It's not fun. I don't wanna do it. It's not fun. Oh, that looks like too hard of work. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's really interesting how that just rings with me, and idle hands are the devil's workshop. So, I'm coming around. I'll make this connection. The idea is that when children are asking questions, do we look, connect, show, give the evidence of God in everything, just like you were explaining? I believe that
Mhm.
God created everything, and in every creation, He allowed a bit of His Spirit to be with that. Whether it was a rock, a plant, obviously humanity, we have a little bit more than that, but the idea is that they're His creations, and that's why they will follow what He has to say. And so, as we show and demonstrate, obviously, like an answer that your father gave, that He is
Mhm.
in heaven, but he, like you said, did not just leave us here like, good luck, y'all. See you later. No, no. His evidence is everywhere and you
Yeah.
can feel it.
Right. The
And
deist perspective. Yeah.
that whole
Yes.
concept is huge. And when we can bring that to children, what a gift of Christmas, right? Because when they can connect
Mhm.
to know that this celebration is truly for a babe born so long ago in his redemptive quality, in such humility, and in such love, to allow all of us to make our choices, good or ill. His love is still there as we come to Him, as we repent, as we forgive others, and as we serve and love others. That connection is truly there. So, Janet, with all of these amazing things happening in your life right now, I believe you have some weddings happening, you have anniversaries happening, and you have a beautiful holiday happening. Where is your focus at the moment?
Oh gosh, April, that's a great question. So my focus is on our King, and the rightful focus is to be on him. And I love those signs that say keep Christ in Christmas. I don't want to lose sight of that. I mean, as a mom of multiple children, how things can get so crazy during the holidays. And we moms who are trying to keep it all together, and keep everything cohesive and get all of the gifts purchased and the proper perspective in line, it's often easy for us, I think, to take on anxiety. So, what I'm doing is something I started years ago, and this is going to sound a little crazy to some moms. As the mom of 8, and I now have 5 grandchildren, we live on a farm. We have animals. We always have a 3-ring circus going on, it would seem. I feel like I have felt in the past overwhelmed. So I went to my husband one year, and this was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I said, I hate to say this. I'm embarrassed to say this to you even, that I am finding my energy waning on my favorite holiday of the year, and that isn't right. So, how can I avoid that? If I have all of these gifts to purchase for all of these people, times however many number we've decided each kid should have, and all of the relatives and all of the teachers and all of the people I want to remember, that's a minimum of 100 gifts every season. And I it's a lot. So he said, "I'll take it over. I'll buy the gifts. You just do the wrapping." And I thought, "Oh, that was a lot." And it's worked out really well. Now, this year is the first year we've said to the kids, I think I've lost you actually. So I'll just hang out. But I think until April gets back, I think this has been great because this is the first year we've said we're not really going to do gifts this year, and we're just going to stay focused on what we need to stay focused on. We have a wedding coming up on the 28th. There's a lot of activity. It's our wedding anniversary. It's my husband's and my 20th wedding anniversary. So we want to make sure we celebrate that. So I'm getting ready just to close things down and call it a wrap for the year and stay off social media and what have you, and just remain focused on the reason for this season. So I don't know. I'm thinking April still isn't back. Maybe she will be back here shortly. But in the meanwhile, as far as her question is concerned, I think there's no mistake that it's the darkest part of the night that we celebrate Christmas in. She says, "My internet dropped." Let's see. Let's see if we can get back on. So she's coming back around. Well, I'll just keep talking in the meantime, waiting for April. Anyway, I just think it's great that we have Christmas trees full of lights and all of the other things that we do with lights during the season. So this year I endeavored to put my tree up in November because I wanted to make sure I kept my message.
Okay, I think we're back.
We'll see what she says. There we go. Hi.
I'm sorry about
I
that.
kept talking.
Internet, good.
No worries. No worries.
Hopefully everything was great.
No, I have the same problem out here in the country. What's amazing is I didn't have to hotspot. I'm still on mine, so I'm next, probably. It's okay.
So that's just how it goes sometimes, right? I'm like, "Oh, here's the great answer."
Not a
Eh.
problem.
So, thank you,
It's all
Janet, for
good.
carrying it through and having that just keep flowing through the challenges. Hey, y'all, with life, what do? You just do your best and you keep moving forward. So, unfortunately, I did not hear all of that. So, I'm going to jump to a new question, but all is good, right? Do you see how you can
Okay, yeah, do
be
it.
flexible with life,
Yes,
right, everybody? Okay. So, Janet, do you have
you have to
any
be.
IM?
I was just
Yeah.
expecting my little dog to run in here.
The dog to come
The
on
husband
in.
already came home from work and walked in for a minute, so yeah, it's all good.
It's all good. So, do you have plans for any more books to write?
I do, and it gets back to the redemptive quality. So, I teach high school literature, and I'm always dismayed when I read a book and it feels like I've wasted my time. I know that you know what I'm talking about, where you have high hopes for a book, and I'm not talking about every book. being unrealistic or overly romantic or sentimental. I understand that that's not necessarily real life, but at the end of real life, I would like to believe that there is redemption and we have a choice, right? So, um, I feel like that's the greatest story ever told is the one that offers redemption to us. And I think that's why there's a longing in our hearts, each one of us, if we're being honest, for redemptive stories. So, all of that having been said, I'm trying my hand at fiction. I've just finished a novel and it needs a definite edit at this point. So, I've set it aside and I plan to pick that up for 2022 and publish in the new year. And I'm really excited. And I think I'll hold off on the title for now, but to just know that it has color in it and it is along the same lines as what I've done so far. And you probably know this, April, but I'll share with our listeners. So, my color obsession really started the day that I saw a rainbow over my daughter's plane. And the reason for that is my dad was killed in a commercial air disaster when I was in eighth grade in San Diego. In 1978, we had a PSA flight crash in the center of town, not far from my home. And I sort of became, for a while, very concerned about plane crashes. I had dreams about them. Then I took a job as an airborne reporter, meaning I spotted traffic reporting from the skies in San Diego in the 90s, then had a series of emergency landings myself, and then had a very serious conversation with a pilot after one of those emergency landings when we were cleared for clearance. We received clearance to land rather at Miramar Naval Air Station and had this profound conversation with a pilot about death and flight. And about 2 weeks later, he was killed along with a coworker off I-5 in Solana Beach. So needless to say, I had this history of plane crashes that were an issue. And I've never been morbid about it. My kids knew that their grandfather died in a plane crash, but it's not a subject we've embellished or over focused on by any means. But on this particular day, she was 14 and flying from Kansas City back to San Diego, and she was afraid. And I began to pray. And at that moment, there was a rainbow over her plane, nowhere else. Her plane was parked at the terminal, and this unbelievable rainbow was positioned over it. Not a cloud in the sky, no storming. And the flight attendant next to me said, I have chills. And I said, yeah, thinking she's going to think I'm crazy. I said, I'm going to be so bold as to say that rainbow's for me because my dad died in a commercial plane flight crash, and my daughter's on that flight. And it was profound because ever since then, that was really the first moment I recognized, oh wow, rainbows really are promises, and they're so symbolic of God and his love. And then I started looking things up in the Bible. We know in Revelation it talks about our God sitting on a throne surrounded by a rainbow. And there are a number of rainbow examples in the Bible. And he has communicated to me via rainbows in all seasons. So that just got me thinking about, well, I'm a very allegorical person. I don't think you can be a literature teacher and not be, but I hope that this next novel, it's not, the focus is not on rainbows, but it's on the supernatural, and it takes the reader beyond what he or she can see. So I'm excited about it. We'll see how it goes. It's really stepping out of my
Beautiful.
comfort zone, I've got to tell you. Hopefully it'll be okay.
Wow, yes, being pulled out of that comfort zone and really being placed into a learning zone and knowing the other things that can happen with this growth is incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that and giving this hope and this idea that you can share good stories. I know there's times where I am sitting waiting for the next good story. It's been at least a decade since a good story. Well, that's what it feels like. And maybe I just haven't discovered it yet. Not a lot of time to discover it. But the idea is, oh, wait, maybe we don't have to wait around. Maybe we can be a part of writing that incredible next good
Right.
story, right? So that takes a lot of action. And when we can bring others to that light, even better, right? Even better. So, Janet, thank you so much for sharing all of this with
Right.
us
Well, and I'm going to tell
tonight.
you, if it's any good at all,
Oh, go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, I was just gonna say, well, if it's I've gotta tell you, April, it was definitely out of my comfort zone, and there were so many times I just wanted to throw my hands up in despair and say, "Yeah, I'm so out of my league. This is not something that I can accomplish." And this is just another message, I guess, in keeping with, the Christmas spirit and hope, is you can accomplish anything you set your mind to do if it's within the will of the Father. So, I just kept hearing him say, "Just keep doing it, just keep going," and who knows, I don't know what sort of response my novel will receive, but I know that it was a fragrant offering to him. Because regardless of what anyone else thinks or the world thinks, my hope is that it made him pleased. And maybe if someone can take hope from it and there is redemption in it for someone, and it allows someone to consider seeing beyond the visible, because what is visible is so insignificant compared to what is unseen. And I think that we just sometimes need to be mindful of that. That's a very encouraging reality.
That's very, very true. And thank you so much for encouraging us with that redemption and the reality that it can be there and it is possible. So, with our last 2 minutes, what is the message that you would like to share with your audience, with this audience tonight, to remember you by?
Oh, goodness. Well, honestly, my platform is authenticity. That's what I really endeavor to be all about. And I think in a world that is absolutely starved for transparency and authenticity, I think it's just important that we all do our best to show the world who we are inside. And that is a reflection of the light we have inside of us. And that is only through our God that that is possible. And so I guess, put yourself out there, take the risks. I mean, honestly, I laughingly say, and I'm not really kidding, it would have been a lot easier for me to live in this place and on this platform 20 or 30 years ago when I was younger. I think we have an enemy that's constantly trying to convince us that we are no longer, not even just, okay, redeemable, but we're no longer viable, that we no longer have relevance in this day and age. I'm speaking to women, especially as we age, and we all go there. I mean, it happens to all of us. Um, I think it's just important that no matter what season that we're in, um, and I guess that's in keeping with this Christmas season as well, but that we just own it, and we understand that we have a God who's intricately involved in our lives and who very much is cheering us on. And I think we just need to step into that and to own the truth and to endeavor to speak truth and to be transparent and authentic as often as we can.
Well said. Thank you so much. This is April Trubjuke and Janet Huxley. Thank you so much for being a part of this Beacon of Light podcast tonight. And may you all have a very Merry Christmas. We'll see y'all. Bye bye.